Welcome back. We are going to continue our review of Mesopotamia, and my goal is to get this done in under 5 minutes, so I'm going to move quick. Our three questions that we're aiming to answer today: what was the first civilization and where was it located? Number two, what is a city-state and how is it different from a nation-state? And number three, why were ziggurats important? All right, number one, the first civilization was Sumer. People living there we would call Sumerians. If you look on the map, Sumer is this orange area. And it is in the region of Mesopotamia that we talked about last time. It is located between the Tigris and the Euphrates, and it started around the year 3300 BCE. So if you look at your notes, number one, the first region is called Sumer, S-U-M-E-R, Sumer. Number two, Sumer started around the year 3300 BCE. And then if we look ahead at number three, BCE stands for before Common Era, before. Now, BCE is the same as, if you've heard BC, it's the same idea. This is the time before the year zero. And so if we're in BCE, time counts down to zero. In this case, 3,300 happened before 3,000. And that happened... and so it works its way down to zero. So 3,300 BCE, that is when Sumer started. Just for reference, the time after zero we call the Common Era. This is the same as AD. So you might have heard of AD, after death. Common Era, the time after the birth of Christ. Before Common Era is the time before the birth of Christ. All right, and so in Sumer you had several city-states. Ur, Kish, Nippur. These are several big city-states in this region. A city-state is a city and its countryside that rules itself. So you have to think, if there were no Kentucky and Louisville ruled itself as its own region or as its own city and Lexington ruled itself, they do not belong to a Kentucky but instead are their own city-states. They are in charge of themselves. They are not part of a larger group. And so that is what we had here in Sumer. You had cities like Ur, Kish, Nippur. All cities that were looking out for themselves instead of looking out for the whole region as its own, as itself. In your notes, number four, a city-state is a city or a countryside that rules itself. Rules itself. And number five, Sumer had several city-states like Ur, Kish, and Nippur. So number five is Kish. Number four, city-state is a city and its countryside that rules itself. Now, how is a city-state different from a nation-state? A nation-state is a collection of city-states that agree to share power and work together as a region. Much like today, Louisville and Lexington exist inside of Kentucky, and we work together to make Kentucky better. So Louisville and Lexington are cities within Kentucky. Kentucky is a larger region that these cities work to make better. So in this case, a city, let's see, number six, a nation state is a collection of city-states that agree to share power and work together as a region. All right. Lastly, our question that I wanted to answer is, why are ziggurats important? First of all, a ziggurat is a Sumerian religious temple. It's this that you see in the corner. And these were important because they sat at the center of the city, and this is where everything within the city, or much of what was done in the city, was done at this temple. So religious ceremonies were conducted at the ziggurat. Business was done at the ziggurat, and ziggurats also helped with irrigation and farming. So in your notes, number seven, a ziggurat is a Sumerian religious temple. And number eight, ziggurats were important because they controlled business, religious ceremonies, and farming. Number seven is temple. Number eight is farming. Let me show you one last picture and then we're done. A ziggurat might have looked like this within a city. As you can see, the city is built around it, but people would go to the ziggurat to do religious stuff, business stuff, farming stuff, And so this is where much of everything was done within a city, which is why they were important. So our three questions were this today. What was the first civilization? It was Sumer. Where was it located? It was located in Mesopotamia. What is a city-state? A city-state is a city that acts almost like a country, where it's more concerned about itself than the area or region around it. It's different from a nation-state because a nation-state is a collection of cities working together to promote good for the region. And lastly, why were ziggurats important? Is because ziggurats are where much of everything was done. Business, religion, and farming were done at the ziggurats in these cities. And that is it.